Good afternoon, and welcome to the Workforce Observer. We are thrilled to have John Healy, a fractional workforce solutions executive, committed to designing the most relevant ways for people to connect with work, and he's executing on those improvements every day. Hi, John. Welcome.
Subhadra, it's wonderful to be here. I'm excited to have a good conversation with you today.
Thank you. So let's start by, by talking a little bit about give us your overview of the workforce solutions ecosystem, but from your perspective as a fractional executive. I mean, I know you've been in the industry for a long time and you have loads and loads of experience, but let's talk about it from this perch.
I think what we've seen or what I've experienced is large organizations are trying to figure out what's the most effective way to get work done for our business. And if we look at the old constructs, there was a build, buy, borrow methodology of, where are you going to develop your own workforce? Where do you need to recruit new talent to come into it? Where might you borrow it either from temporary staffing firm or from an outsourcing firm to get things done? But as we progress forward, the ecosystems become far more complex. And it's created new avenues that maybe weren't there 5 years ago. I mean, today, you certainly can't bring anything up without talking about AI. And so we have agents that are performing work for us. Hopefully, we both have agents that we use to get our own work done each and every day. But that's an element that's come in. And then another piece, if I go back to when we first met in our previous roles,
Right.
the concepts of crowdsourcing was something that I don't think I had ever really been exposed to. I think, when I heard people talk about total talent management or talent supply
Mm.
chain management, it was temp plus full-time. Simple reality is there's many, many more models that are out there today. And the data that's available, both for internal to your organization, but also to the external marketplace, has also radically changed. That allows you, if you've got the right information, to start looking at the ecosystem with a much different lens to make better decisions about it.
Right. I guess what you're trying to say in my way of thinking is that it's not just temp and full time.
Oh,
There
it's
are
so
many,
much more.
many
It
more, so
it
much more.
well, and it's part-time versus full-time. I operate in a fractional way. So a lot of people say, "So you're a consultant?" No, I'm not. My typical engagement is from 18 to 36 months with an organization taking on full responsibility. So where I do a lot of work in workforce strategy, organizational design for a company that wants to rethink the way work gets done,
Right.
they may only need that half a day a week or a day a week to get that done effectively. Or I may be
Right.
mentoring someone to extend the capabilities of the organization. Doesn't necessarily need to be a 40-hour a week,
Right.
9 to 5 job in the same location. It can be fractional or part-time, if you will.
Perfect. So I know that you've been very deeply involved in, strategizing, designing, and implementing complex workforce ecosystems. What drives this focus and what's the scope of these initiatives?
I think for me, yeah, for 27 years, I was with one organization. I finished up running the Office of the Future of Work for them, and a lot of that was about helping people reimagine what was possible, and it just really captured my passion. I think just kind of understanding the workers' expectations,
Hmm.
doing some things, across the industry. So in my role, I work for the World Employment Confederation representing Kelly. So that's the body that lobbies for healthy labor markets around the world. It's a
Hmm.
confederation made up of roughly 50 national federations that are there and some global corporate members. But you start exploring the different ways that work can get done inside organizations, inside cultures, inside communities, and then all of a sudden you had COVID come and that changed everything, right? We all
Right.
experienced different ways that things needed to get accomplished. Well, what you got the opportunity to see is those who were creative, and I've found that the temporary staffing industry has a history of being very entrepreneurial and kind of bending and
Yes.
flexing. When the market moves left, they kind of figure out,
Sure.
okay, where do I go? How do I adapt and get things done?
Right.
And you started seeing new models emerging, new ways that things were getting done. So I think for me, taking this on was about the passion for improving that experience for workers
Right.
and the dignity that comes with gaining access to work and opportunity which is so
Right.
important for everybody and every individual, and making sure that's something that people can enjoy, and can feel good about the opportunity that's come forward for them.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. So, what key benefits are you seeing from this modernizing workforce ecosystems, and both from an organization perspective and the worker perspective?
It's speed and agility and flexibility. If you're a worker and you can gain access to opportunity that will enhance your career, give you access to better pay, excite you to come to work every day more. You
Fair.
gain value there. You're going to perform better work. For organizations, if they can get access to the right talent faster, can get it at a better price point, for the organization, can get the right level of expertise inside the organization to accomplish those projects. That's good not only for the organization, but for that manager who's responsible for getting that work done. He or she,
Mhm,
has
mhm,
their
mhm,
career on the line for going through it. But I also
mhm.
think people underestimate the impact on communities. When you have people who are getting access to those opportunities, you just have a healthy labor market, and the community itself becomes healthier. You have less people, we hear all about mental health in today's world. If people are actively working and feeling good about what they're doing and have the right balance in their life, they feel
Right.
better about themselves, their family, everything in there just kind of
Right.
starts working more effectively. And I think
Right.
when everyone can pause and take the time to bring those pieces together, the outcome is significantly better for everyone.
I mean, this is something which I'm really curious about. Can you give me an example? You don't have to go into details though, because just hearing you talk, it's inspiring. Can you give me an example of a piece of work that has been broken up down into different components and being managed? You don't have to go into details on what the work is, but like maybe they have a bit of crowdsourcing. Maybe they have some, the recruiting models a certain way. Maybe is there anything, is it like that? Can you describe something? Because what is the difference? I'm trying to wrap my arms around it.
Yeah, I'm gonna do a circular because I'm gonna encourage you to look to, there's a gentleman by the name of Steve Rader, R-A-D-E-R, who came out of NASA. He recently retired from NASA, and he ran a center of excellence there that focused on the
Okay.
crowdsourcing element. But at NASA, if you think about, our US Space Agency, they have, roughly 17,000 employees. They have, roughly 50,000 contract workers that come into the organization. But in one of the crowdsourcing platforms alone that they work with, they have access to 75 million individuals.
Mm,
So now when you're tackling a problem, you're able to
mm-hmm.
start asking the question, are we best using which segment of this workforce and how we get things done? And NASA has been very public and very transparent in some of the ways that they've accomplished things, and that's because they are a public agency. I think it was the Mars rover project, was the one that really intrigued me out of it, that, after the project was done and could be deemed a success, everyone knew it had been
Okay.
done well. They
Okay.
took the 10 biggest engineering projects that really caused problems for them during it, and they put them out to the crowd. They spent millions of dollars to solve each one, and they put those out to the crowd and said, "Hey, give us the design specs, 2 weeks, bring it back," and they had very modest prizes that were there, and then they gave the results to the team at Northwestern to just kinda compare. What did the crowd say versus what actually happened? And they found in 8 of the 10 that the crowd's solution was better. Now, the project was still a success, but it said to everyone inside the organization, maybe there's a different way to design it. And there's science to this. If you look on a simple bell curve, when you bring in experts, your solutions will always tend to be in the center of that bell curve, right? They're a little
Mm-hmm.
tighter because we have the expertise, so you're going to fit more into that center piece. Well, sometimes the extremes is where you get the most radical solutions and the best answers.
Mm, right.
That often requires the loss of confirmation bias, the loss of someone who has been embedded into something. So,
Sure.
that's one organization and how they approach it. But I even just think,
Right.
for what I'm doing,
Right.
bringing someone in to design strategy for an organization at a time where change is happening so fast, people can get frustrated if you bring things at them too quickly. So doing that
Mm,
on a fractional basis opens things up. If you look at retail today, How many people want to work a 9 to 5 shift in retail?
Mm,
Or can I
mm.
break that work into different packets at different points of the day where I have surge demand? We have the information and the data to tell us not only what the business needs, but what the individual wants as they come together. So,
So it's really not about the classification anymore.
no,
No,
yeah, what I
it's
would
not.
say, there's a book called Workforce Ecosystems that's out in the market. It's built off of some research that MIT and Deloitte did. And in a classic consultant's four block, if you will, if you think of the x-axis, so the left and the right, the internal and the external workforce, we can all understand that one very easily and see what's there.
Right.
On the y-axis, on the bottom, think of how you do all the tracking of the compliance and administration. Very important. We've got to pay people accurately, both internal and external. We may need to track contracts. We may need to track training, different things that are there. But on the top layer of the y-axis is the knowing and understanding layer. And for years, as much as companies want to say that they knew and understand their workforce, they really didn't. It was a study LinkedIn did that said 75% of CHROs indicated that they felt LinkedIn knew their workforce better than they did. The company I left after 27 years, the last resume they had on me was from 27 years prior. Now, they had all of the compliance stuff. They had all my sexual harassment training and my officer training and the formal things that I had done, my job history, the roles and responsibilities. But if you said, where did the organization know who John was and what I really wanted to do? You'd look to my mentors, you'd look to my bosses, you'd look to my peers that I spoke to, but institutionally, the organization didn't have that. And then if you go to the external workforce, from your time in the temporary staffing industry, the redeployment rate is horrible in the
Yep.
temporary staffing industry.
Yep. Yep.
So we really don't know the workforce. They haven't, but you started to see the platforms that emerged into it, beginning with an Upwork, but if you kind of continue on, they started focusing on community and really developing the knowledge and understanding people. So what I'm starting to see is the migration of HR organizations saying our job, instead of being the left column, the full-time, the internal workforce, it's now the top row. Know and understand our workforce. And so the engagement model, that's a
Mhm.
compliance layer. It's a utility function for more and more organizations. So you know what? I might have ADP running our payroll, which many organizations have. I might have an EOR or an AOR partner
AOR.
as well, managing all of the external workforce and making sure we do that in a legally compliant way. Oh, okay. So now I can spend all of my energy focused on knowing and understanding the workforce instead of worrying about the control of each category that's there. And that's a major shift that's happening with organizations who primarily, you'd say, that have begun the journey to becoming more of a skills-based organization is one of the triggers you'll see of companies that have made that shift and are starting to really think about their workforce ecosystem differently.
Yeah, no, no, that's great. But I did so much work on writing compliance articles when I first started, you know, and then of course naturally it moved on to other things. But yeah, it's good to hear that. It is. I think we are moving forward.
And I don't
So
underestimate compliance. It's mission critical, has to be
yeah,
there. But
right.
it's, what I'd say about it, if you go back in time, think of when Henry Ford started building the Model Ts, okay? On the Detroit River, he had an electric plant. He had all the hydro, so he had a hydroelectric plant, so he had his own power system, and he had a steel mill. Well, at a certain point in time, a lot of people could use steel, so they ended up outsourcing that, and someone became a steel company. And and everyone needed electricity, and it became a public utility.
Usually company.
So
Okay.
I didn't need to have my own for that anymore. So I think one of the questions you're hearing more organizations start asking is, wait a minute, what if this is a utility layer that I don't have to own and control myself anymore? I
Right.
need it to be done properly, but as long as it's reliable and it meets my compliance expectations, it's not going to cause problems. I can start thinking about how I build a workforce very, very differently.
No, it's an interesting comparison. Thank you. Yeah, no, something to think about for sure. So, given all of this, what are the most pressing challenges you think the ecosystem is facing today? And how are they being addressed? Maybe just one challenge, two challenges,
We keep hearing about transformation, right? Every company's trying to go through
Yes.
digital transformation. The,
Yes.
the sad part to me is that's become a euphemism for layoffs. We got to cut
Oh,
costs. It's been driven by
right.
the CFO. We've got to cut costs. We got to cut costs. Okay. If you really start looking at the concept that I have gotten intrigued with and seen more organizations using is one of organizational debt. Where in our organization do we have just legacy debt that we need to eliminate and think about in a different way? It might be in technology. What's that mainframe system in that back corner, that's still running a mission critical application? There's a problem if we still have that. You can have cultural debt when you have leadership who says one thing and does something different. That causes problems inside an
Yeah.
organization. There's all forms of cultural debt that can happen inside an organization. But when you have those pockets of debt, they take an organization down quickly.
They
And
do. Yeah.
and if you keep making the minimum payment to just get by, we
Yeah.
all know that story that you'll
Yeah.
never get out of debt. So I
Right.
think I think the willingness for organizations to recognize where they have this debt and to put a plan in place to get rid of it and to eliminate that debt. And if that means I need to declare bankruptcy in a functional area, you do that. Like, look what IBM just did. They essentially eliminated their HR business partner function. And they're being very public about this because the technology allows them to do it in a much more effective way for the end user. And that's feedback from the end user. The HR business partners whose roles got eliminated, they don't feel that it's the right thing. But the
Of course.
customer, the user of the system, the user of the
Right.
service is saying, this is much better for me right now. So I think the courage, from a mindset standpoint, to rethink things differently,
Right.
to not develop something new out of a nostalgia-based mindset where I
Right.
I just need to automate the old function, but to have
Right.
that willingness to rethink how things can get done. That's the exciting opportunity.
Okay. So AI, can't have a conversation without referencing it. How is that transforming the ecosystem? I mean, I know it connects people to work, but how? And what are the processes it really optimizes?
I actually think talent acquisition is not the area that people should be jumping into AI to use. We've got
Mm,
plenty of algorithms that do matching. We can have long debates on the ethics of using an algorithm to do matching versus a human being to do matching. Candidly, a lot of the problems we have today
mhm.
are caused by the human doing the work. So those who resist the machine doing the work, I'm willing to have some debates with. But I think that the AI opportunity more than anything right now is in
Mhm.
understanding how work gets done inside your organization to build those talent communities, to gather the insights and perspectives of individuals, to be that assistant. If you haven't begun by having your own assistant that's doing things for you, that's doing some of the preliminary research, that's drafting things up for you so that you can focus on kind of the refinement and the finishing work and the critical thinking pieces of it. Those to me are the critical elements for the today. But every organization needs to have a pathway and a roadmap for how they're going to use AI, how they're going to do it ethically and responsibly inside their organization, and to foster that culture of curiosity. Um, we've got amazing opportunities and amazing tools that are there for us right now. We need to be willing to try them, and then we need to be willing to say it went well or it didn't go well, because we're going to mess some things up. That's natural with anything that's new. So
Sure.
I,
Sure.
I think it's more about the commitment to curiosity and the mindset and starting to bring some focus into understanding how work is getting done for your organization. And again, I'll go back. I think it's the companies who have made that commitment to thinking about becoming a skills-based organization, to think about their planning and their org design around a set of skills coming together to execute a series of events, those are projects, initiatives, outcomes, getting those things done. there's big opportunity for AI to help improve the efficiency of that process.
So there's so much hype around it being a threat to the industry. How do you see it?
I don't see it as a threat to the industry. Been around it long enough. Remember job boards were going to wipe out the temporary staffing industry.
Job boards, VMS.
Yeah, yeah. We've LinkedIn was going to do it, and now LinkedIn is one of the biggest providers to the industry. So, um, I
Yeah,
think
that's
that
true.
the threat is more towards those. I think I referenced it, who are strictly using technology to automate a bad process. I think the big opportunity that we're missing is the reinventing of things. So, if you go back when the internet first came out, remember the you could get the online yellow pages.
Yeah.
Oh, so so that was an old analog thing, the yellow pages, that had just been made digital. Okay, but it hadn't reinvented anything. Fast forward to what Google created, and now we are searching for very different things. We weren't just going to the yellow pages. So, how are we rethinking? You can get into questions of where do people want to go. But I was talking to a gentleman the other day as a company. He is helping individuals create their agentic personality to do all their interviews for him. And he
Mm.
envisions a time, it's not ready for it, and it's not ready for prime time in any way right now.
Mhm.
But he envisions a time where I could have an agent who's armed with my knowledge and experience who can go out and do the interviewing for me and come back and tell me where those opportunities are. Well, we already know companies are having agents do preliminary pre-screening and going through it. So companies feel comfortable doing it. Why can't the worker get comfortable doing it? And so I think the biggest challenge that we have is how do we build trust in these systems? And that's, we can get into a whole Web3 conversation and identity verification and the value of verifiable credentials and things like that. But I think
Right.
those are some of the bigger opportunities that need to come into play that
Right.
will allow us to reinvent the way people get access to work and to opportunity.
I wanted to ask you this question. Achieving human agility in jobs. What is the what is the workforce ecosystem's responsibility? Where do we come in?
I think it's gonna be a unique journey for every individual, and for every organization at different points in time. So, there was a time for me when I had a young family that what I needed for my career was different than what it is today. Um, there was a time where the development of having the responsibility of leading a team and building knowledge in certain areas was very important, at a stage of my professional development. So we all have these different arcs that our careers go through, and organizations have their own arcs that they go through. I think the agility and the opportunity is how do we make better matches of those
Okay.
opportunities at the right time for
Right.
the right individual. And again, I just think people who are still living in the world that means you need to work from 9 to 5. You need to live 20 minutes from the office and come into the office 5 days a week, and work, 50 weeks a year. That if that is the only way you're going to engage your workforce, you're going to live in a world of scarcity. And when you're
Hmm.
willing to think differently, you can find yourself living in a world of abundance. So I think the real challenge to people is when you find yourself saying, I can't get this done. It's not working. I can't figure it out. We can't get the talent we need. We're losing too much of the talent that we have. So we're not able to attract who we want. Then maybe instead of trying to just do it with a different person or a different provider, maybe it's time to rethink, is the model that we're using the right way to think about this? Or is it time for us to think of something different?
Good answer. Fractional executives.
Yeah.
They are rising. If you look at LinkedIn, if you look at, I talk to different people, right? A lot of people have that attached to their title, fractional. What's the significance?
I go back and I think I referenced a little bit earlier in the conversation, I think it's the consultant versus the fractional. To me, fractional, and where I started using it was to differentiate from having responsibility for the outcomes. I think too often the consultant comes in, gives advice, and leaves.
Mhm.
And that's a great role for a lot of people.
Mm.
For me, I prefer to be in engagements where I have responsibility for outcome and I want to stay a part of what's there. So, example, I was the fractional CHRO for a small electrical utility, and it was because they had an internal candidate who just wasn't ready. She had some gaps in experience, and so they were going to hire an external person to bring in. And we talked to them about, okay, what's going to be the cost of the new person? Going to be much higher. You're probably going to lose the existing person because she's going to be frustrated that you didn't trust her and didn't give her the opportunity. So she's going to move on. And we said, but what if you hired me for half a day a week? And we developed those gaps and closed that out. And the cost was dramatically lower to get there.
Mm.
The energy and enthusiasm from the individual who was already part of the organization, who felt trusted, who felt that she was being given access to the resource that was going to help her close that gap, was significant. It was material. I was energized. I was going to learn something new along the way as well, about that industry. And it all came together. So I think it's in today's world, just demographically, we have a lot of people who have been in senior level roles who are exiting the workforce. The baby boomer generation and I guess the start of Gen X are starting to phase out of the workforce, but still can bring some value into the market. So how and where do you engage them into something? And if you can access some expertise that you don't have in the organization. Everyone wants to talk about, we need an outside in view. Well, if you only have inside people doing it, it's hard to develop that. So, to me, it's one of those, try it in an area where you have some need to make yourself better or look at things differently.
No, that's a great answer. Uh, Two-parter and a quick answer to what does the future of work look like to you? And if you have any advice for our listeners, what would it be?
I think the future of work is fun. I really do. There is stress on organizations. There's no question about it right now, whether it's tariffs or it's commercial times that people are struggling with what's going to happen with the economy,
Right.
or with legislation in markets. There are stress on organizations there. But when you're able to live in a world where there's abundance, where you can find different things and where you can try different things,
Yeah.
the opportunity becomes much greater than if you're just going to get stuck in that world where it's getting tighter and tighter and tighter and you're feeling squeezed. So I think that's the big opportunity. So to me, it's enable and incubate and experiment with curiosity. Embrace the curiosity that people have who want to try something different, who look at something in a different way, be willing to explore and imagine what could be possible. Have those brainstorming sessions that say, what could you do? You'll be shocked where some of those ideas come from. So crowdsource inside your own organization, find things. It's funny. I'll sit with the CEO of an organization, and a common mantra that I'll give when we hear their problems is, if the problem reaches the CEO's desk, there's only one of two reasons why. Either you don't have the knowledge inside your organization to fix it, or your culture has created an environment where that knowledge is not being allowed to be exposed.
Mm.
Either way, you got to do something different about it to kind
Mm.
of help some things. So be curious, try things differently, explore what's there, test, learn, improve, and then scale. But don't be afraid of that iterative cycle of testing and learning, and improving and moving your way through that.
John Healy, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time and your insights.
So, Badra, thank you so much. I really appreciate the time and the opportunity to talk today.
It was wonderful. Thank you.